Candace Owens pulled up to Piers Morgan with Marc Lamont to mainly argue about what was going on with Diddy, so on and so forth. All right, as far as what I've seen. So let's see if we can mine out a little bit what happened, and we're going to go from there. Thank you guys for hitting the like for the algorithm. I appreciate y'all. And if you've been here more than once, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I want y'all to know when we go live. We go live every single morning. And then last but not least, make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Let's go.
Behind the scenes.
The next US president will either be an accomplished state prosecutor and senator or a billionaire real estate mogul who served 4 years in the Oval Office. At least that's how I and many other people see it. But the laws of identity politics, this is actually a contest between a mixed-race woman and a very privileged white man who's intrinsically racist, and race has inevitably become a lightning rod in this election. This week, Kamala Harris said that she's open to taxpayer-funded reparations for slavery. She also unveiled an opportunity agenda for black men, which included legalizing weed and offering 1 million forgivable loans.
That sounds so funny, legalizing weed. Okay.
To black business owners. Most black voters will support her, nobody doubts that, but she's on track to win a much smaller share of black voters than Joe Biden did in 2020. Donald Trump, meanwhile, is on course to make substantial gains amongst black voters. In a little while, we'll debate why that is. But first, we're going to focus on P. Diddy, whose scandal deepens daily, already facing federal charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering.
Let's get to the debate.
Podcast, Candace Owens, and the host of Bet News and Upfront on Al Jazeera, Professor Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to both of you. Candace, good to have you back on Uncensored. P. Diddy, this seems like every day the scandal gets bigger and worse for him.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, I think I was on your show before he got arrested, and I brought up what was going on with him, and because I had read through the lawsuit, and it was just one of those things that was unavoidable because there was so much evidence. I mean, there was picture documentation, there was video documentation. And I also want to be clear that the press and the media and the public at large is shocked by what's happening, but we really are just getting to the beginning of everything. There are a lot of people who have been named that have not been brought to heel, people that were above him, music executives, and none of this is shocking, really. I think, yesterday a report came out that showed that faith in the mainstream media is at an all-time low, right? I think something like 65% of Americans no longer trust the mainstream media. The Diddy case is a perfect example as to why that is. You have people that spent so much time defending this man. This man was allowed to be with every presidential candidate. He was allowed to throw parties. He was hailed as a hero. And yet behind the scenes, everyone knew that this is what he was engaged in. This was an open secret in Hollywood. In fact, when Kanye last year said that he was a Fed and started speaking about some of these allegations, he was simply dismissed as crazy. People at the upper echelons of society and politics knew about this, and they were okay with it. Fundamentally, because he was acting a part, I very much believe what Kanye alleged, that he was acting a part like Jeffrey Epstein, in which he was collecting blackmail over various people that were in Hollywood. And so, like I said, we're at the beginning. We're scratching the surface of this scandal. There are some more big names that are going to have to answer for it. And I think also the silence of certain individuals like LeBron James is quite deafening. A person who claims to care so much about Black life, Black Lives Matter, on the ground, taking a kneel. Okay, that's fine. But now you have a friend of yours who has been on camera beating a Black woman. Okay, you said nothing when that happened. You also know that you have various Black people speaking out about how they were abused by him, and you have said nothing. So I don't like the hypocrisy behind that.
Yeah,
she is so articulate, well-versed, can communicate effectively, makes her point concise, and she stand on it. She is probably one of the most feared people as far as debating that somebody can stand in front of, especially somebody like a Marc Lamont Hill. Let me see what he has to say about this.
I think it's a good point. I mean, Marc, there are lots of big names being dragged into this. We don't know where the truth lies with that yet, but certainly people like LeBron have been deafening with their silence for the reasons that Candace just articulated. It reminds me a little bit of Epstein in relation to all the apparent taping of videos and pictures and stuff that was allegedly going on, and we'll see what that plays out like in a courtroom. But it also reminds me of Harvey Weinstein in the sense that there you had somebody, in the movie industry as big as P. Diddy, well, I think the most Oscar-nominated person in the history as a producer in Hollywood, where everyone must have known something about him, right? I mean, I knew that Harvey was a pretty bad bully and all the rest of it. And it must have been more than an open secret amongst a lot of those celebrities and Hollywood crowd.
Did you know about Diddy, Piers?
No, I didn't. No. No,
wait a minute.
Well, I didn't know. I met Diddy. I'll tell you, I met Diddy a couple of times. I mean, here's what the analogy I'm going to make is, I met Diddy twice for about 10 minutes. Harvey, I knew a lot better, and I knew there was an unsavory side to him. I didn't know about all the rape stuff that then emerged, but I do believe there must have been a lot of people who did know that stuff, who were around Harvey Weinstein at a close enough level to know that. And I certainly believe with P. Diddy that there were a lot of people that were going to these freak-off parties and so on who must have known for many, many years that all this stuff was going on. That's the parallel I'm drawing.
No, I understand the parallel you're drawing. The idea that I'm disputing is just the idea that everyone knew, or that
I don't mean everybody. I mean, look, I just think a lot of people must have known.
Of course. We're not in disagreement about a few things. First, everything that Diddy has been accused of is despicable and indefensible, and I hope that he is held accountable in all the ways that are fair and just and reasonable. There are, I mean, who knows how many victims? You know, there are lots of allegations. I have no doubt that lots of the allegations are true, and as Candace said, I have no doubt that lots of people have known for a long time. And there are lots of reasons why people didn't come forward. Some of it is good old-fashioned, Hollywood culture, which is people are getting exploited, people are getting hurt, people are getting harmed. But as long as it's the old boys network, we don't care. And Diddy became one of the old boys network. The old boys network isn't just old white men. It also includes powerful, rich black men. Not in the same way, but certainly people like Diddy are in that mix. I don't disagree with that. I'm very uncomfortable throwing LeBron James's name out there as someone who knew something or has some
well, no, I think,
conspiratorial
to be fair, but on that, I think
Candace
was quite careful how she worded that. She didn't say that he knew. She just said he's been deafening by his silence, which he has. He's been very vocal about a lot of other issues involving the black community in America. Why is he so silent? Just because it happens to be somebody he used to party with. It's just interesting.
It is interesting, but I want to caution the audience not to jump to any conclusions about why LeBron hasn't. Again, let me be very clear. LeBron should speak out about this because something awful happened, and he has a duty. I think all public figures have a duty to speak out against awful, morally atrocious things that happen. I just don't want to leap to a conclusion. I'm not saying Candace did, I'm not saying you did, but I don't want to leap to a conclusion that there's some other sort of reason why he may have done this. The other thing here is
I just remember I just remember.
I just need you to hear. Go ahead, Piers. I'm sorry.
Well, the point I was going to make, just on the point you made.
All I was going to say is. Sorry.
All right.
Okay. There's just a little delay.
Let me go first. Let me go first. The point I was going to make about the
you
point.
Go first. You go first.
You just made a really good point, which I want to make a point of, which is I think that the point I would make was when Harvey Weinstein went down, there was an absolute stampede of celebrities in Hollywood who rushed to distance themselves and publicly denounce him. And I've just noticed that with P. Diddy, there's been a very, very, very small number of high-profile black celebrities, including sports stars, entertainers and so on, who have chosen to do that yet. So there's a marked difference between the way these two scandals have played out in terms of how many high-profile people are prepared to go, this is disgusting.
Well, I think there's another thing here, right? Harvey Weinstein was a predator, full stop, right? Diddy is, based on the evidence, a predator, full stop, and some other stuff. And there are a lot of people, based on what I know, people I've spoken to, the stories I've heard, and the rumors I've heard for 20 years now, about Diddy that aren't always about predation. And that's the complicated thing here, right? A lot of the
Why does
details,
that make it complicated?
a lot of the gossip, a lot of the nastiness. You'll just hear me out, you'll understand.
Okay.
The thing is, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the subtext around Diddy isn't about predation, it's around sexuality. And so a lot of people aren't aren't really outraged, especially in the hip hop community, that Diddy was preying on underage girls allegedly, or that he's beating up Cassie allegedly. Some people are just weirded out that he may have been having sex with dudes. And so there's a multiple things happening here. And so a lot of the people in Hollywood who are being quiet on Diddy, they're not being quiet because they knew he was doing something illegal. Some of them are quiet because they were at the parties, they were at the freak-offs doing freaky stuff. And the freaky stuff isn't illegal, but it can ruin your career in a society that's homophobic. So I'm saying
I hate to say this. But on this point in particular, I 100% agree with Marc Lamont. I 100% agree with what Marc Lamont is saying. I think that there absolutely have been a lot of people, when this thing first came off, people were trying to figure out who was gay. Before they ever, I heard, okay, this might be Meek Mill on this tape screaming, is DJ Khaled sassy, all of this stuff. And again, I am objective. And so I may not agree with Marc Lamont Hill on a lot of issues, including where he stands politically. But with regard to this particular conversation, he's right. He's 100% right. A lot of people were more concerned when these allegations first came out about who was sassy, about these freak offs, about who was the men that were engaged in the freak offs, and what celebrities could possibly be exposed as a result of it. And where's the names and who's on the tapes and all of this stuff. He's absolutely right. I also agree with him that as much as I like Candace Owens and as much as I actually agree with her on her political stance when it comes to Democrats versus Republicans, to just throw LeBron James' name out there and assume that just because he hasn't spoke on this particular issue, that somehow, some way, and who knows, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but to assume and throw somebody's name out there just randomly and say, why is he quiet about this situation, is wild. You can't just do that. You can't just do that. If the evidence at some point shows that LeBron James was at a freak off, cool, then we'll have that conversation when it happens. But to just throw somebody's name out there is not right. It's not right. It's not right. I don't agree with it. I disagree with it. You can throw anybody's name out there and saying, why are they so silent about this? I don't agree with Marc Lamont Hill in that he said that LeBron James should speak on this or he should speak about this. I don't agree. I don't think that he has to do anything. People want for celebrities to fall so bad. And I disagree a lot with what LeBron James stands on, especially politically and some of the opinions that he has. But I don't think that you should just throw a name out there until we have facts and evidence as to what if they were doing something that was illegal or improper. Until you actually know that somebody was doing something illegal or improper, you can't throw their name out there and say, why they ain't speak on this issue. It's a million different issues in the United States of America. And if I choose to absolve myself from speaking on something in particular, then that's what I'm going to do. And so, again, I agree and disagree with Marc Lamont Hill. I agree and disagree with Candace Owens. Let me see if I can mine this out a little bit more.
it's a lot of things mixed in.
Okay, Candace, you're raising your hand. I think I know why, but go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you in some ways. What I would just add is it's without question because they did not know that he was recording them. I mean, when I read through that lawsuit, Rodney made it very clear that he had hidden cameras. And if you are a person like LeBron who says ain't no party like a Diddy party, you got Ashton Kutcher talking about what happens at Diddy parties stays at Diddy parties. And finally you learn via the press that actually Diddy has been collecting evidence on all of you and you don't know where those tapes are. That will buy your silence for quite some time because you're hoping that if you keep your head low, you're not going to be revealed as one of these people that was engaged in some of these acts, whether they were heterosexual or homosexual, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're just cheating on your wife and you don't want that to get out into the public. Maybe you were, as Cat Williams described it, in one of the rooms. He said you could just walk around the house. He said this on stage years ago, that you could walk around the house and you would see people engaged in various sex acts. And again, Cat Williams was someone who was dismissed as crazy and dismissed as a drug addict. And it turned out that, or it seems that if these allegations are proven to be true, and I believe
I said go to the 123.41 mark. Let me go over there. 123:41 Marc. Ain't no 123:41 Marc. The stream is only 57 minutes long.
Then he was telling the truth. And I think that is the reason that so many of them are silent, because they were doing things. They thought that they were his friend, that they were bad boys for life, and that he would keep things silent, when in reality, he was just another Jeffrey Epstein typed character. And they're scared for their lives.
Yeah,
Especially if you're.
And I agree with that. That could be some truth to that. But again, I'm very careful about convicting somebody in a court of public opinion just because they haven't said anything. If a tape comes out that then shows that somebody was engaged in something illegal or unsavory, all right, well, then let's have that conversation. But I don't believe in just throwing people under the bus because we don't know what we don't know. And we don't even know what's on the tapes first. So let's see and let things play out. Time is the revealer of all things. Over a period of time, everything comes out into the wash. So we're going to see what happens. But I just don't want to throw people under the bus before they get their due process and before we actually have evidence of it. Because you know what people don't do? They don't go back and apologize for being wrong when they are wrong. And people are wrong a lot. All right. So let me go ahead and read some of these super chats. I got to jump into a Zoom call. And then we're going to rock out from there. And then I'm going to catch y'all tomorrow. Okay.